For over 1,000 years, one of ancient Egypt's absolute most important cities lay completely hidden beneath the Mediterranean Sea. But then, in the year 2000, an underwater archaeologist actually found it. It was perfectly preserved in the silt of Abu Qir Bay. Colossal statues, 700 anchors, 64 ancient ships. And that initial count of 64 ships, that was really just the beginning. The thick silt of the bay acted like this incredible protective time capsule, eventually revealing a staggering 125 identified ancient shipwrecks. Divers sweeping the seabed have uncovered more than 700 ancient anchors just scattered across the clay. And right in the middle of it all, a massive temple to the supreme god Amun, surrounded by colossal statues, with its sacred treasures still resting quietly inside, just waiting in the dark. Section 1. The Hunt. Discovering the Sunken City. So how do you actually find a metropolis under 10 meters of water? Well, lead archaeologist Franck Goddio and his team used this non-intrusive system approach. They didn't just dive down and start digging blind. The whole process meticulously begins with reviewing ancient historical archives. Then, they sweep the bay using NMR magnetometers and sonar to map out the hidden structures. It's only after those electronic maps give them positive clues that the careful physical excavation begins. The absolutely crucial technology that makes this invisible world visible is the NMR magnetometer. It was developed by the French Atomic Energy Commission, and it's so highly sensitive that it measures the absolute value of the Earth's magnetic field more than 1,000 times per second. It basically acts like an underwater X-ray. It allows the team to pinpoint stone ruins buried deep under hard clay, all without disturbing a single grain of sand. Section 2. The Treasures, from colossal to fragile. That mapping technology led them to overwhelming wealth and literally monumental weight. They pulled up a 5.5-ton, 5-meter-tall red granite statue of a Ptolemaic king that had shattered into 5 fragments. They found huge fallen stone blocks from the Amun temple, but nestled among those massive monoliths was some deep opulence. We're talking precious gold jewelry, lapis lazuli jade pillars, which symbolize stability, and incredibly rare silver ritual libation dishes. But the crazy thing is, it wasn't just gold and granite that survived. Franck Goddio himself said, "It is extremely moving to discover such delicate objects, which survived intact despite the violence and magnitude of the cataclysm." What he's marveling at there are 4th century BC wicker baskets. They were brought to the surface, still filled with doom fruit, which was sacred to the Egyptians, and grape seeds, completely untouched for over 2,000 years. Section 3. The geological cataclysm. Why did it sink? So, how exactly does a bustling ancient metropolis end up at the bottom of the sea? Today, this legendary sunken city, along with its neighboring city Canopus, lies submerged roughly 6.5 kilometers off the modern Egyptian coastline. The sinking wasn't just one catastrophic day. It was a really tragic, drawn-out timeline. It kicked off in the mid-2nd century BC with a major collapse event. By the 1st century CE, the city was partially submerged. And finally, by the 8th century AD, following the Arab occupation, the entire place completely disappeared beneath the waves. This sinking was a dynamic, terrifying geological sequence. Severe earthquakes triggered violent tidal waves. But the real killer here was soil liquefaction. The massive weight of those temples literally squeezed the waterlogged clay beneath them until the solid ground turned to liquid. It's exactly like when you step on wet sand at the beach and it just gives way under your foot. Add in a land subsidence rate of over 3 millimeters a year and rising eustatic sea levels, and the earth was quite literally pulled out from under the city. Section 4. The Hub, Ancient Egypt's Maritime Gateway. Before Alexander the Great laid the foundation for Alexandria, this place was the absolute epicenter of Egyptian maritime trade. In fact, this excavation solved a major historical enigma. For centuries, Egyptologists were totally puzzled by ancient texts describing a great Egyptian port called Thonis, while Greek historians like Herodotus praised this incredible port called Heracleion, while the artifacts pulled from the bay proved beyond a doubt that they were the exact same place. This city was a thriving, truly multicultural gateway. On one hand, you had deep Egyptian religious traditions, anchored by the Temple of Amun, where pharaohs received their divine right to rule. But right alongside that, you had a massive Greek presence. We're talking imported Attic ceramics, sanctuaries dedicated to Aphrodite, and Greek mercenaries who were actually stationed there to defend the kingdom's river access. And this unique blend of culture is even extended to their naval architecture. Archaeologists found a 25-meter Ptolemaic galley that perfectly married classical Greek mortise and tenon construction joints with a flat-bottomed Egyptian design. It was this brilliant hybrid ship, perfectly engineered to sail the deep Mediterranean and navigate the shallow waters of the Nile Delta.
Section 5. The Unknown. 3 Unanswered Questions.
As we reach the cliffhanger of our explainer today, prepare yourselves for a truly mind-boggling number. After more than 2 decades of cutting-edge exploration and mapping, Franck Goddio estimates that only 5% of this massive ancient city has actually been found.
5%, which really sets up the massive, unknown scale of this site and leads us to ask the obvious question: what mysteries are still hidden out there in the remaining 95%?
Right now, there are 3 major open questions absolutely baffling the archaeologists. First, they found this strange 4th century BC funerary tumulus. It's basically an island surrounded by channels filled with bronze Osiris statues. It shows signs of a spectacular burning ceremony, and then it was sealed forever and never touched again. But why? Second, since the city was built on a network of canals, what secondary sanctuaries are just waiting out there on those unexplored islets? And finally, out of all those ancient shipwrecks, what incredible cargo is still buried inside those unexcavated hulls? It is an opulent civilization frozen in time, quietly resting in the dark waters of the Mediterranean. So, what do you think is still waiting to be found in the bay around Thonis Heracleion?